Hey guys, it's Robbie Kareem coming back at you with another Robbie's Movie Reviews, and probably the last one for the weekend. Surprised to see me during the day? Yeah, I kinda am too. Essentially though, this is a nice early showing I finally got to see, and what a surprise. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself, because today, on our third review, we're looking at the latest family comedy drama to kind of grace the silver screen. Starring our own Marky Mark, as he hates to be called, so Mark Wahlberg and Rose Byrne. We're getting into, yes, Instant Family. A movie that, based on the advertising, may not have looked the most appealing to the group. And if you look at the kind of reviews from my other fellow reviewers, it's not getting the best in regards to its kind of initial playthrough. But that's where I come in to kind of give you my opinions and share in some insight and see just what in the world we have in store for this movie. Thanks for tuning in, and if you're new to the channel, thank you so much for taking a visit. Here's how it goes. We do the trailer just in case you need a refresher. Throw in a little bit of a quick and dirty review, so if you're looking for just a quick summary, you'll get it, unlike this opening. And then you figure, for those who want a little more detail, maybe are a little more inquisitive, there's a spoiler-free component where we kind of talk about the likes and dislikes in a little more detail, so that way you can get a little more insight into it. But let's stop rambling and get started. Hi, Robbie K Review here, and here we go. Now, in regards to Instant Family, in case you haven't seen the trailer bogged down in a million different advertisements, Instant Family is about two people, again, played by Mark Wahlberg and Rose Byrne, who are out there looking to potentially adopt in a very heartworthy and based on a true event story. You have Instant Family coming in that is all about trying to make a new family from a new start by giving kids who have had a rough start a chance. Now, outside of that soapbox, you can guess that there's going to be a few things that maybe don't go quite the way that they had planned in regards to starting a new family. And the chaos and potential cuteness to come are all there ready to go for the family drama. But is there more involved? Have the trailers lied to us? And are the reviews really on point? Well, let's get started with kind of the quick and dirty summary. And all surprised, going in with low expectations like I was doing, Instant Family turned out to be one of the better films that I've seen in a very long time. Now, I'm not saying it's the most original, the most unique, and definitely not the most surprising, but it's definitely got a lot more heart and humor than the trailers give you credit for, and definitely a little maturer than you might expect. Yes, Instant Family surprised me in terms of how much I laughed, the good pace, and a surprising balance of a lot of aspects that you usually don't see in these movies. I myself was very entertained and did not feel that, even though it was nearly 2 hours long, felt in any way, shape, or form that it was a long movie. It's fun. It's family dynamic. A little language, so, warning for those wanting to take maybe younger ears and more delicate ears to it. But overall, it is a sensational film about family and the struggles that sometimes arise with maybe not just this unique situation, but just with starting a family in general. I myself am very happy with the results. Now, in regards to it again, it's simplistic, it's predictable, it's corny at times, it's a little preachy. It feels a lot like a kind of a big budget Hallmark movie that, really isolates a lot of those qualities. But surprisingly, it is so well balanced and put together, though, it offsets a lot of those, at least for this reviewer's sake, to definitely warrant a try. So if you're looking for that date night movie, or a group of friends who are parents, if you're like my friends, looking to kind of unite and find a fun movie, this is the one for kind of a group night out. Even though there's not as many special effects, the good fun time feeling you'll have with it, I think will make up for it. And definitely of the three I've seen, another one that I would give a shot. If not, get yourselves ready, because once it comes out on digital or Redbox or however you choose to view it, I think it will speak volumes to a lot of people, especially if you're a new parent or looking to be a family. This movie may just motivate you. Anyway, let's get to the scores for the quick and dirty review. In regards to it, which I'm going to say comedy, family, and maybe we'll put in a little bit of drama / biography, I'm going to have to give it an 8. Probably an 8.5 if I'm being super generous. In terms of movie overall, though, I'll admit it's probably a 6.5, maybe a 7, because of some of the other components that are missing off of it. Nevertheless, Robbie does definitely encourage you to do that. So if this is where I leave you, thank you very much for checking out. Please share, like, teach me how I can make these better so that I can help more people and make these a better service. However, if you're willing to stick around a little bit, let's go into a few more details and give you what my definitions of why I like them were so much. So here we go. In terms of the likes, because I love starting out on a positive foot, what do we have in store for this movie? Well, it comes to the fact of, again, balance. And that's what everything is going to essentially be. And we'll start with the comedy. You know, when you come to these kind of family movies, sometimes the comedy gets so diluted that it's only meant for the very unique audience who don't enjoy cursing, who it has to be clean, simple fun, that is pretty much G-rated. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but it leads to a limited audience in that case. Not the point for this one, which is brilliant because it's going for a movie that's already going to be kind of on the lower end with The Grinch and other big films that have already preceded it. This one really just surprises you because you can find more people who enjoy it. And that's where the comedy really came in for me. Yes, there's cursing, but it's not overdone. Yes, there's rambling, and again, mostly appropriate, a couple of times crossing the line. Yes, there are gimmicks and situational comedies and other components that, again, sometimes get a little misused, but nothing like half the other things I've seen. It's a wonderfully dynamic comedy component that will have you chuckling, whether out of cuteness, relativity, or maybe even the fact of that you're just finding the stupid gimmick perfectly timed. It's amazing in terms of those comedy styles. So well done to the writers and directors for that. It's relatable. And again, when it comes to these movies, sometimes you get lost in the perfect world syndrome where everything has to be happy, dynamic, and pretty much like a Hallmark movie that you see where everything goes right on a scripted basis. And while this suffers a little bit from that, it's also realistic in terms of it. Because it's not a perfect race. It's not this kind of crisp, grandiose demeanor that comes with a lot of these films. It instead is very relatable for those in any kind of circumstance. New parents, parents struggling with teenagers, kids who have issues of being told no, and the parents don't want to tell them no. It's covered in here. Strain on relationships, strain on people and outside components. I mean, across the board, you definitely end up having a number of things. And I guess that's why I like it, is that with so many issues and looking at the sociology stuff that comes out in half the sitcoms and on half of the public service announcements, this movie does a really good job of integrating it into a story. So, you know, kudos on there. Now, if you throw into the next component where we've got kind of the story. Well, the story is definitely not the most original. Certainly not the most engaging at times, and definitely not, you know, a story of fantasies and legends like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or half of these other big blockbuster movies that we've become entranced with. And that's okay, because even though that's the case with it, the movie still has a story that keeps things in relevance. Because of the dynamics, because of looking and building on the character aspect and focus, and keeping that underlying family adoption component with it, it works. And the story's linearity just allows them to stuff a lot of components into it that I think many people are really going to enjoy. Again, it's just a fun, entertaining one with enough relevance and class to it. And maybe that's where my next like is that the emotion is surprisingly strong in it. I didn't cry, but if you want to hear where my audience members were doing, we had sniffles all over the place. And that's because it's got a lot of good emotional value to it. A blend of happiness, sadness, and all of everything in between that I think people are going to be able to lash onto and kind of get into the scene like I was doing. Because again, well done on that level in terms of the nice surprise that comes with it. And of course, when you have that comedy like we talked about earlier to relieve it so that it's not just a sob fest of drama and, oh my god, family dynamic stuff, it keeps it engaging because that will lead more people to enjoy it, at least in my opinion. So, you know, bravo there in regards to it. I guess in terms of balance, there are some people who think that you take a kid, no matter how bratty, how young, because of their innocence and the situations that they sometimes come into, that they can't ever make a mistake and that their cuteness and charm come in. On the opposite end, you've got those people who are ready to throw kids into the wolves because they are annoying as heck with some of their tidbits. I mean, I think there's a lot of sitcoms that have easily proven that factor. And again, that's the case of this movie, but it's balanced because you get these quirks and charms and resistance. And yes, you're ready to smack these kids and deal some justice sometimes. And the movie takes those components, isolates them, and helps you teach a lesson I think a lot of people need. Empathy, understanding, and realizing that yes, they may come from a bad spot, but things got to be addressed or they're going to cascade. Beautiful job in terms of all of those qualities. And I think that's another reason, is that it did a beautiful job of bringing all of those kind of life lessons into the mix without hitting me over the head. And on the times when they tried to hit you over the head with it, they actually made fun of themselves for doing it. A nice use of comedy in terms of that regards. Basically, though, the emotions in here are going to really speak to a lot of people. And I'm looking at the time and realizing I'm rambling on the likes. So let's get through a couple more and then we'll kind of go through it. You heard about the pacing. It didn't feel that slow of a movie. So it kind of skyrocketed, went dynamic. And that, my friends, I think is definitely the component that is totally key as well. Because it's not so drawn out, because it's got that fun dynamic with it, you keep yourself engaged in the film and it flies by very quickly. Still not convinced with it? Well, Mark Wahlberg, again, sometimes has his movies where he's overused, sometimes where he's not. And if you're a Mark Wahlberg fan, this might be one of his better ones in a while. Now, again, it's not an Oscar award-winning role or the tough gruff if you like those components. But it's a nice blend of comedy that's probably a little more mature than Daddy's Home style, but still silly enough to be warranted in that. And it works very well in this film. Overall, I guess as you've heard, the theme is balance, and that's where this movie really works and surprised me, because even though you had those annoying quirks with the kids, they kind of got on board with it to minimize it so that you weren't ready to rip your head off, which I've had before in some kids' movies and family movies. Now, let's kind of get to the dislikes, because of course no movie is perfect, and we have to weigh these in, because maybe dislikes is too strong of a word, but areas of improvement in my realm. First of all, a few extra twists, turns, and some unpredictability could have taken this movie a little farther. Again, it's a simplistic story. We have to take points off of it because we've had other films very similar to this that do the magic well. Perhaps that's kind of where a few more things could have helped to give it a little more edge and oomph. But, you know, that's a small dislike, small area of improvement, because I know what the direction of this film was. Again, I'm trying to figure out how to make it so that it's even more theater worthy. Secondly, I'm not going to lie, you had one of the kids got a little more detailed. And you're going to say, well, Robbie, of course, that one kid is a teenager. Obviously, they're going to have more on their bag than the other two. And you're absolutely right. However, they seeded a lot of other components into the kids, in terms of quirks, in terms of kind of personality, behavior components, and definitely a few other stories that even the trailer kind of laced for it. And they were a little skimmed over in my taste. Not to mention the one kind of component where somehow one of the kids was devoid of logic, never really got addressed, and was one of those times where they got a little overboard on the ridiculousness of that situation. Now again, it's not uber over, but maybe that kind of could have helped as well, because all three kids kind of had issues, and so that people don't point out, why did the one person only get it and the others didn't? It's a political component with it, but something in terms of a good plot point that could have extended beyond it. I myself love one of the grandmothers that was in there. I kind of wish she had more time. Again, a small dislike because there is balance, and I actually think they utilized her probably to the best. This is just one of those times where maybe a few more scenes really could have kept her involvement into it. And I guess something else that maybe is my biggest dislike is sometimes they tried a little too hard in terms of some of the comedy. And this mainly had to do with Rose Byrne's family. Now, I can't say anything because I'll ruin some of the scenes, but there are some heavy-handed comments that are made that some people are really not going to like, come out super judgy and kind of super extreme, like we see with a lot of Saturday Night Live skits, only not as creative and sometimes a little overdone and forced. Maybe that's where my weakness is in regards to that. So overall, though, because it's now 15 minutes and I haven't finished it up, that's probably my biggest dislike. But that's, again, maybe something minor depending on who you are, and that would probably be the one that's like, ugh. And I guess, you know, overall, is this movie like the super theater movie of the bunch? No. Grindelwald's got you beat. You got the special effects, the sound, and the drama that I think everything makes for going to the theater. You want that high-tech experience. But here's the thing. Where this movie really shines, though, is the fact of how much fun you have. At least I did. How much emotion is packed into it, but still a good family film that is really going to engage a lot of audiences. Is it for everyone? No. You don't like happy-go-lucky stories or kind of predictable plots, you're going to hate this movie. Not artistic enough for you? Again, you're going to hate this movie potentially because of the kind of the cute quirks and gimmicks that this movie is loaded with. But if you're looking for a good family film, if you're looking for something that's relevant, funny, and just engaging, entertaining, and looking to go with your friends who are all in this gimmick, even if you're single like me, give this one a shot, because you're going to be surprised at maybe some seeded components with it. And even though I agree with a lot of what my fellow reviewers say, there are components here, but I can't be extreme in this time, because my goal is to kind of look at the big picture and understand where they're coming from. Nevertheless, guys, we got to finish this up, so I apologize for rambling. I encourage to see Instant Family, and definitely try to get to it in the theaters before kind of December hits and you guys are on your Christmas plans. But overall, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and if you haven't heard the scores, again, in its category, we're looking at an 8, 8.5. The movie overall is definitely somewhere in the 6 to 7 category, just because it does need some cleaning up, some originality, some uniqueness, and maybe a little less of the Hallmark carbon copy component. And I'm going to try to shoot for the higher end because I'm trying to be a little more understanding with it. But nevertheless, this is Robbie K. Thanking you again so much for sticking around for this longer video. Please like, subscribe, share. Please help me expand this because I really want to turn this into something bigger. But until then, have a good one, and thanks as always.